Good afternoon. Welcome with Biblical Discovery Ministries. I'm Dr. F. Mitch Simmons, and we have the pleasure of coming to you again today to talk about the Word of God. You know, this time of year is now approaching, it's in the month of March, and it's approaching springtime fast, like very fast. And what's the wonderful thing about this is that all the spring holidays, or holy days, as mentioned in the Bible, are going to be presented in the upcoming months. And as we go through, we're going to study about that. We're going to look at some of the holy days. But today what I want to talk about, we're going to talk about something Jesus did or said several years ago. We'll be in the book of Matthew, chapter 24, and we're going to start at verse number 1. And if you would please, follow along. It says, Jesus left the temple, he was at the temple, and walking away when his disciples came up to him to call his attention to all the buildings that are around there in the temple area. Do you see these things? Jesus asked. I tell you the truth, not one stone here will be left on another. Everyone will be thrown down. That's an interesting prophet that Jesus made about looking at the Temple Mount area where all the buildings and stuff are. And he made a statement to his disciples that every stone is going to be thrown down. And we're going to find out later on it came true. In fact, it came true in 70 AD. Verse number 3. As Jesus was sitting on the Mount of Olives, they have left the Temple Mount, went across the Kidron Valley, went up the mountain to the Mount of Olives. And when you get to Mount of Olives, you can look across the valley and you can see the city of Jerusalem. Okay, so as Jesus was sitting on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately. Tell us, they said, when will this happen? They're speaking of the stones being thrown down. They're speaking of when the end of the age is going to approach. What will be the sign, they asked, of your coming and of the end of the age? Jesus answered, watch out that no one deceives you, for many will come in my name, claiming I am the Christ, the Messiah, and will deceive many. You will hear of wars, rumors of wars, but see to it that you are not alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come. Most of my lifetime, we've gone from World War II to Vietnam to North and South Korea. We've been fighting out in the Southeast Asia and Vietnam. We've been fighting and been rumors of wars in the continent of Africa, throughout Central America, South America. There's been changing of regimes throughout the world, most of the world. We've been having problems in China, North Korea, Japan, the Philippines, Australia, all throughout Europe, and sadly enough, even within the United States of America. It said, but Jesus said, such things must happen before the end of the age comes. Okay, it goes on to say, it says, nation will rise up against nation, kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines. You see it every day. People starving to death on earth. Man's inhumanity to man. They won't even feed each other, won't give each other water. They won't get a dignity of recognizing another person as being a human being. There will be famines and earthquakes. There's been many articles put out. We have seen or heard of so many earthquakes and volcanic eruptions and bad weather in the last 150, 200 years than it has ever been on the planet. And we keep wondering, what's wrong? Because the earth is screaming. The earth is crying. And sin is abundant. It just keeps growing. Sin is producing more sin. And Jesus goes on to say, and all these things are only the beginning of birth pains. They're only the beginning. Then you will be handed over, he's talking to his disciples, for persecution and put to death. And we know in our studies that after Jesus had died, he was buried, resurrected, sending it back to the Father. That in fact, his disciples got scattered. They ran for their lives. They was trying to kill them. They was persecuting them. You know the stories if you've been reading the Berit Hadashah, we call New Testament. It talks about the travels and voyages of Saul, Raul Shaul, Paul. Talks about Peter, talks about John, the places they went out trying to find the Jews and the people who believe that God's chosen people and tell them about the Messiah. The Messiah that they have been expecting has come. It goes on, if you go down to verse number 26, and Jesus goes on to say, he says, so if anyone tells you, there he is, he's talking about the Messiah, out in the desert, do not go out there. Or here he is in the inner rooms. Do not believe it. For as lightning that comes from the east is visible even in the west, so will the coming of the Son of Man. Wherever there is a carcass, there are vultures will gather. Immediately after the distress of these days, the sun will be darkened. And we talked about this before. We spoke of last year that is interesting about the year 2014 and 2015. There will be a total eclipse of the moon on Passover and Tabernacle that took place in the year 2014. There will be a total solar eclipse in 2014. And what do we expect for 2015? Come Passover, there will be a total eclipse, lunar eclipse. Tabernacles, later part of the year, there will be a total eclipse of the moon. And in between, in the summertime, there will be a total eclipse of the sun, be a lunar eclipse. Predicted 2,000 years ago by Jesus. It says, in fact, it was even said before Jesus. It was said in Isaiah. Isaiah first spoke of it. God gave it to him. And Jesus only confirmed it. It said the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from the sky. And what has been happening over the years has been finding. There's been more and more meteors and asteroids and comets that's been coming near Earth misses, falling and burning up. They finding craters throughout the world, and they was wondering where all these meteor craters hit, because objects are hitting the Earth. And it's hitting the Earth with more consistency. That's being prophesied. And it says, and the heavenly bodies will be shaken. All the creation will be shaken because the time is approaching. It goes on in verse number 30. At that time the sign of the Son of Man will appear in the sky, and all the nations of the earth will mourn. They will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of the sky with power and great glory. And he will send his angels with a loud trumpet, shofar, trumpet call, and they will gather the elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. You know, this has been read about many years. And if you studied history of people who have followed and believe in Jesus as being the Messiah, and studying the Bible, the Word of God here, they have found, yes, it's going to take place because God has predicted all these things to take place. However, things wouldn't totally fit together because all of the prophecies had missing pieces in years past. It said, they will see the Son of Man on the clouds of the sky, and he will come with great power and glory. Well, right now, I'm sitting here now on the East Coast of the United States in South Carolina. It's dark. It's a nice warm evening. How can I see if Jesus comes back? Or how can somebody in Japan, or down in the the islands of the South Pacific see the same time I can see. Remember, the Earth is circumference is 25,000 miles. From the top to the bottom through is over 8,000 miles. You can't see beyond the horizons. Because you get to one horizon, there's another horizon. And it keeps going on and on and on. What is Jesus talking about? How is that possible? Well, we have a few things in this world now that everybody has. It's called a phone. It's called a computer. It takes pictures. It's a thing called internet, where I can sit right here in South Carolina in the evening and I can watch what people are doing in Jerusalem right now, and it's some 8 hours away from us. Or I can see the people in Japan, in Tokyo, Japan, watching the sunrise. Do you think that we might be in this last day that it keeps speaking of? And if you notice technology, if you notice the things that we're every day now, what we call convenience, now we go to the mall or go to the store or stop at the traffic light, go anywhere, we're constantly being watched. And everybody is watching everybody else. I can see 10,000 miles from here as it's taking place right now. You couldn't do that before, 50 years ago, 100 years ago. Definitely not 2,000 years ago. Brothers and sisters, I might think God might be trying to share something with us. Because see, for those of us who seek to know the Word of God, for those of us who seek to receive His gift, who's Jesus the Messiah, we should pay attention to this. We should pay close attention to this. Jesus said, verse number 32, "Now learn this lesson of the fig tree." Learn the lesson of the fig tree. I'm going to stop here. I understand I'm running out of time. But we're going to make it part 2 of this, where we're going to continue on, because we're going to get down to the time and day of when Jesus is supposed to be coming. If we expect Him to come back. But here, Biblical Discovery Ministry, we wish you all well. Remember, read the Bible. Read this book. Believe in this book. Seek to know Him, know His Word. Next time, we're going to continue on with Matthew 24. But until then, Shalom, Shalom, Yishalayim. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Shalom, Shalom, and Shalom.